Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Coding 101 is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com.
This episode of Coding 101 is brought to you by DigitalOcean. Simple and fast cloud hosting built for developers. Deploy an SSD cloud server in 55 seconds. Try it today for free. Visit DigitalOcean.com, and once you sign up, be sure to enter the promo code C101 in the billing section for a $10 credit. And by Lynda.com, the online learning platform with over 3,000 on-demand video courses to help you strengthen your business, technology, and creative skills. For our free 10-day trial, visit lynda.com/C101. That's LYNDA.com/C101. Today on Coding 101, it's a Wildcard episode with Patrick Delahanty and Mark Smitty Smith. Hello and welcome to Coding 101. It's the Twitch show where we let you into the wonderful world of the Code Monkey/Code Warrior. I'm Father Robert Ballasser, and joining me today is a whole cast of characters. Let's bring him in over here on the big screen. Of course, we've got our Super King Kamehameha co-host, Mr. Lou Maresca. Lou, thank you very much for coming back.
Thanks for having me back. Excited here.
Yeah, it is exciting because we're giving you a twofer. We decided that it wasn't just enough to have Patrick Delahanty, although we love him. We wanted to bring back Smitty. That's Mark Smith of DEF CON fame. Also, one of the biggest tinkers we've ever had on the Twit TV network. He's been on Coding 101. He has also been on Know-How. He's an all-around good guy and, well, one of my personal heroes as far as tinkering and programming is concerned. Smitty, thanks for coming back.
Thanks for having me, man. You're kind of making me blush here. I feel like I should be shoving my hands in my pockets and kicking the dirt. Aw, shucks.
Well, I mean, come on. Let's be real. You gave us one of the projects that did that hard-to-do crossover between Know-How and Coding 101. You showed us the hardware, building a clock, an analog clock, a meter clock out of an Arduino, and then you also showed us how to program it. So, yeah, you broke new ground there.
Oh, well, cool. I've got some other projects I've been working on that I'd love to bring back to the show as well.
Of course. And as always, I mean, I kind of take him for granted because he's just a couple of doors down from me. But he is a fantastic person and a great programmer in his own right, Mr. Patrick Delahanty. We're saying you from adequate.com now, right? That's what you want?
Well, I'm from Twit, but my own web stuff is on adequate.com.
Okay. And yeah, we'll stick with that. Yeah. Well, gentlemen, we don't have a hard and fast topic. I wanted this to be a little bit different. Remember, we did one of these a while back. This is sort of Coding 101 and chill. Although, no, I probably shouldn't say that. This is... that didn't work. This is a more chill Coding 101. I think that's a better way to say it. We're not doing a programming language. This is not an interview. This is just a bunch of guys who like coding and want to talk about their experiences. Are the three of you up for it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's go.
All right.
All right. Let's talk about this first little story. This has been on my plate for a while, and I want to get your opinion on this. This is a story about a former Microsoft programmer by the name of Mike Borozdin?
Bless you.
Borozdin. Lou, you've never worked with this man, right? I mean, he's been at Microsoft for a long time.
Yeah, no, I have not.
Yeah. Well, he put out an article that was published by Lifehacker, talking about the skills that you would want out of a professional programmer. And he said something very interesting. He said, if you want to be a good programmer, learn to write, not code, but to other people. He said the most successful programmers he's ever met have been people who learn how to write to actual people, how to convey an idea to actual people. And let me give you the summary. The summary is, in doing that, you actually learn logical progression versus just giving someone a chunk of code and then you're really upset when either they don't understand it or they want to change it. But Lou, let me start with you. You have done hiring. Is this one of the things that you look for?
So it's tough. It depends on where the candidate's at. If it's a new hire from college, they're not going to have that. But if you have an industry hire, absolutely, it's being able for them to extrapolate how users are going to use the system and how developers are going to use their code, and that's how well they write their code. So if they can do both, then they're usually superstars. But if they can do one, sometimes they can't do the other, vice versa. So yeah, it's something that you can definitely use for industry hires.
Right. Patrick, this this is actually a tall order for a lot of programmers. I mean, let's be honest. Programming has a reputation that goes along with it. Typically, somewhere on the autism scale, and Asperger's is very common in our community. And a lot of programmers don't know how to express themselves, even if they're not on the autistic scale. They just don't know how to interact with other people properly. They don't have the social graces. And for a lot of people, this sounds like a tall order. Now, I can see a large group of programmers saying, who cares if I can interact properly with you if I give you beautiful code? Shouldn't that be it?
Yeah, well, and still, some programmers don't care about beautiful code. They just want it to work. And then somebody else looks at the code, especially like the triangulation we had a couple weeks ago with Larry Wall talking about complicated Perl programs.
Speaking of heroes.
Yeah,
Yeah, right.
complicated Perl programs that are impossible to understand, and you run them and they do something that you wouldn't expect. So yeah, this is where writing clean code and comments come into play. And if somebody else can understand your code, then you've done a pretty good job.
Or you later on in life,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
understand your own
And
code.
you are your own someone else,
I
right?
have to look at code I wrote 10 years ago, and I'm thinking, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest fallacies that we've maintained here on Coding 101. We always say, look, the comments are so that someone else can pick up your code
No.
and figure out what you did. That's totally not what they're for. What they're really for is because at some point I'm going to go back to the library I wrote 10 years ago, and I will have no idea why I wrote it that way or why it's as inefficient as it is.
What you were thinking. You didn't have the headset, the headspace that you had back then. You
Exactly.
don't have it now.
Exactly.
You are your own other person, right?
Well, Smitty, what about that? So I mean, between the three of us, you do probably the most contract work, the most gigging work, and you have to do this. I mean, that's how you get the contract. You can't just give someone a resume and say, hire me. You have to be able to express yourself. You have to be able to understand other people. How important is it to you to be able to express your ideas in a way that non-technical, non-programmers can understand?
So first off, I want to correct you. I don't actually do gigging or contracting. I have held down the same job for the last 9.5 years with one employer, and I'm not really allowed to do things for money outside of work. So I have to be careful on what I admit to doing in public here. Having said that, I do think that being able to communicate clearly and effectively is probably the single most important skill that anyone can have, any engineer can have, not just programming. I could see a connection between being able to express your thoughts clearly, translating into being able to code clearly. I could see a connection there that I had never really thought of before. But just in general, unless you are a one-person shop doing everything from soup to nuts, you will be interacting with other people. And to be able to interact with other people, you need to be able to communicate effectively with them. I'm finding that as I go higher up the food chain at my day job, I spend a heck of a lot more time in Word and Excel and PowerPoint than I do in VI. And that's a decision that I'm consciously making or deciding not to make. I haven't really figured out which way to go on that. But effective communication is critically important.
Lou, isn't that, it's almost counterintuitive. I mean, a programmer just needs to program, right? But I mean, we're hearing here that, no, you need to be able to do all that other stuff as well. You need to be able to communicate your idea. You need to be able to write a Word document as well as you write C#.
Yeah, I think a lot of students coming out of college, that's something that they lack, is because they don't do side projects. They just pay attention to, kind of doing their university work or whatnot, and they do their projects and they do really well, and they don't necessarily work with teams. They just work by themselves. And they find that when they come to a large corporation or any corporation they're so after, is they find that they can't actually branch out and do other things and take the initiative and be proactive about things, because they don't know how to collaborate. They don't know how to communicate what they need to learn or what they need to know. And they sometimes suffer because of that. So you can find the smartest person from one of the greatest schools, and if they can't communicate, they can't thrive and grow and evolve. So I think that's important. If you can do both, like I said, you could be a superstar.
Yeah, superstar indeed. Patrick, what about that? I mean, you have also helped with hiring decisions.
Yeah.
When you look at someone who may potentially be coding for you, how do you test whether or not they can communicate with people? Is it just the interview process, or is there something that you use that sort of bring out the inner troll?
The interview process is really the only place that I've ever had the chance to test somebody's interaction with somebody. But I asked them about their development history and projects they've worked on and how those projects have, how they've gone, to try to get a sense of how they work, if they can work independently or if they need to have a project manager or somebody to oversee them, or just tell them what to do, or if they're able to think on their own and interpret the requests of the client or whoever it is that's deciding on this project.
Right. Well, gentlemen, I do want to move on. We have an interesting topic. I'd like to talk a little bit about the gig economy. We did this the last time we had one of these more chill episodes, and that's just us talking about what someone coming up in the world of programming might need to know, might want to know as they start entering the field, especially this new thing that we're calling the gig economy, which used to be called contract working or freelancing. But we'll get to that in a bit. But first, I do want to thank the first sponsor of this episode of Coding 101, and it's DigitalOcean. Now, if you don't know about DigitalOcean, what's wrong with you? It is the easiest way to get your server up, your app up. It's the easiest way to push out into the cloud something that you need to encapsulate and have running 24/7 across the world in as big or small a footprint as you want. Now, the way it works is actually brilliant. You see, DigitalOcean gives you droplets, and droplets are essentially containers. They allow you to take any app, any service, basically anything that you might need root access to, and put it into a container that can then be run on DigitalOcean's network. What does that mean? It means you could start with an incredibly small deployment, just minutes long, so that you can get a feel for the real world traffic, and then with a slide of a mouse, move it up to worldwide deployment. This is the future of deployment. This is how we should be looking at our infrastructure, and you can have it right now at DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean is built for developers, by developers, and it's used by over 400,000 of them, including me. I get to deploy and configure my droplets via their streamlined control panel, or I could use a simple API, and I get to choose my OS: Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, Fedora, CoreOS, FreeBSD. They have a one-click install that lets me deploy apps like Django, Docker, Drupal, LAMP, GitLab, MediaWiki, Node.js, WordPress, Ghost, Magento, OwnCloud, Ruby on Rails, and more. In fact, I just used it this last weekend when I was down in Las Vegas with my family for Thanksgiving. We had a parish who wanted to get a site up for a parish festival that they were going to have, and they wanted to do it in WordPress because they had experience. Well, I decided to try it with DigitalOcean, and because they had that one-click install, I was literally up and serving in 5 minutes. It was one of the fastest deployments I've ever done, and because I had root access, it meant that I could mess with the install to make it work the way they wanted to work. Now, all their servers are built on hex-core machines with dedicated ECC memory and RAID SSD storage. They can have up to 20 CPUs, 64 gigabytes of memory, and 640 gigabytes of SSD storage. They're highly scalable, so they can meet your demands now and in the future, and they do auto backups and snapshots, so they take care of all that scut work that you don't want to deal with. It allows you to clone, deploy, and resize the droplets as you grow without having to worry about whether or not you're backed up properly. They've got servers all around the world with 99.99% uptime and gigabit speeds. They'll even let you have dedicated IPs if you need them. You've also got web console access with HTML5 plus SSH, SFTP, and KVM VNC for virtual desktops, and an extremely active community with a large and detailed set of tutorials on the ways that you can use your droplet. This is one of the things I really like about DigitalOcean. It's not just a website with an FAQ. They've got real users giving you real answers to real problems. If you get stuck, just ask a real person. It's so easy to get started. You could be up and running with your own SSD cloud server in as little as 55 seconds. So here's what we want you to do. We want you to try DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean has incredibly affordable and straightforward pricing with servers starting at just $5 per month. There's also hourly pricing available starting at less than a penny per hour. But we're going to make it so that you can get started today and deploy an SSD cloud server for free. That's right. What a great price, for free. Visit DigitalOcean.com and create an account. Once you confirm your email and account information, go to the billing section and enter the promo code C101 for a free $10 credit. That's plenty to get started and explore what DigitalOcean can do for you. That's DigitalOcean.com, DigitalOcean.com. And once you sign up, enter the code C101 in the billing section for a $10 credit. And we thank DigitalOcean for their support of Coding 101. Let's get back to the action. Gentlemen, in the last I want to say 2 years, there's been a term that has really become popular, and that's the gig economy, which is weird because it's not like it's a new thing. We've had the gig economy for a very, very incredibly long time. We used to call it temp work or contract work, freelance work, seasonal work. And the whole idea is it's not a permanent job. It's something that either you do for a period of time or up to a set goal. But recently, the gig economy has become its own thing. In fact, they just did a report in Forbes, I believe, where they said in the developed world, the gig economy, jobs in the gig economy are the fastest growing sector. And you have a lot of incredibly experienced, incredibly professional individuals who are using things like Airbnb or Uber or any of the contract works that they can find on Craigslist to supplement their income or become their main source of income. The open question to all of you. How do you see this rise in the gig economy? What makes it different from what we used to just call temp work?
I think it's partially due to the fact that that a lot of people are becoming more makers and more of self-driving their career and what they learn, and so they tend to pay attention more towards, hey, I'm self-reliant and I can build my own things, and since it's the information age, I can find out how to do it and then build on top of that knowledge to do it myself. And since that's the case, you're going to get a lot more people that are going to try it themselves and feel and take that, be able to, take that risk and do it themselves, rather than people who are just going to sit back and only the experts are going to do it. And so it's that whole idea, the whole concept is if you do something well, it should never be for free. So it's like, that's not necessarily the case anymore. It's because, people with the information age, they want to share the information. They want to show people how to do things right and how to do things well and how to do things better. And then people build on top of that. I think that's where we're growing, especially in contract workers. People become really good at doing something. And, sometimes they want to get a little bit of money on the side to do it. And so that's where it's coming from.
Smitty, I know you've been with the same employer for quite a while, but I mean, you're kind of the perfect person for the gig economy. You've got such a breadth of knowledge on so many different topics. You can do the whole soup and nuts thing if you wanted to.
If I wanted to.
If you wanted to. Yeah. But, this is why I want to ask you, there are people out there who look at the gig economy, and it may be attractive because it looks like a lot of money, but then on the other side, they have this idea of, well, this is a steady job, and I will have this for a very long time versus always going from gig to gig to gig to gig. What is it that can make someone pull over to the other side? Is it just the money, or are there actually people who enjoy the gig economy?
So I have done contracting in the past. It's always been either on the side or during times of underemployment, i.e. after a company I was working for went under and I didn't have another job lined up, and I would just do some contracting on the side to pay the bills in the meantime. I have always preferred full-time employment. When I got out of college in '99, after my 6.5 years in college, I spent no more than 1 year in any job for 4 or 5 years, I think. It took a long time for a steady job to really come along. And I was talking to my dad, who spent 32 years at IBM, and I asked him, I'm like, how is that possible? How could you spend so much time at one company for so long, whereas I can't seem to keep a job for more than a year because the jobs that I had would either go under or they would close the office that I was in and I would have to start working from home, which I don't want to do. And part of it was that the economy that I was in was just, there was a lot more turnover in the early 2000s of jobs. The tech bubble was kind of, it was doing some weird stuff. And I asked him that question. And it turns out that he worked for IBM for 32 years. And IBM is a large company, right? There are so many different groups inside IBM that he never spent more than about 3 years in any one position in any one team doing any one thing. He moved around a whole lot. So the 32 years with one company is a little bit misleading because it's almost as if he spent 3 years with this company and 3 years with that company and 3 years with this other company over here. Just all those companies were called IBM and they were doing different things in different office buildings or whatever, right? And so that made me feel a little bit better about going from job to job to job to job. And I think that there's probably less difference between the gigs and the full-time, long-term employees at companies. Like I said, I've been at my current day job for 9.5 years, but in those 9.5 years, I've been doing the longest time I spent at doing any one thing was 5 years. Since the very beginning, 5 years, and then I've been on like 4 teams since then. So I've been kind of moving around from team to team doing different things. And it's almost like gigging, because I would go to this team and do a big project, and I would go to that team and do a big project, and I would go over to this other team and do a big project. But I get the stability of having a regular paycheck and having a review cycle at the end of every year where I get to, see my progress and get a raise and get a promotion and continue to move up. But I don't have to worry about okay, where's my next gig coming from? Okay, where's my next contract? Am I going to be able to make rent next month? Do I have to pay for my own insurance? Do I have to deal with my tax withholdings? All of that crap just it goes away, right? I've got an HR department that takes care of that for me. For me, that is a big win. I'm kind of lazy. I'm inherently don't like having to take care of all of that stuff myself. So for me, working at a day job is a much better situation, much more preferred. They say that, you can make $200 an hour, which is at 2,000 hours a year is, $400,000 or whatever it is. That's assuming you're working 40 billable hours a week every week. When you're contracting, that has rarely been the case for me, right? So I would always bill at roughly twice what I would make per hour at a steady job, because I would only expect to be working about half. I would only expect to have contracts for about half the time that I could be working. Granted, I live in Arroyo Grande, California, which is a little bit smaller of a market than I would be up in the Bay Area, but it's still, it's. I just like the stability is really kind of what it boils down to.
I think that comes down to it. We've got Travis KA7TZX, Ham, and he's probably here for you, Smitty. He says he's been working a 6-month contract that's been going on for 4 years now, and that's not atypical. I actually hear that a lot, where you have a contract worker who they bring him in for a job, or her for a job. They like the work, and so they keep him on. In fact, that's me. I think I had a 6-month contract to Twit. I'm now here. I'm going my 4th year now, so go figure. Lou, I want to get to you because you've got some experience from this at Microsoft on the experience side. But let me throw to you real quick, because something that Smitty said, this idea of stability.
Yeah, a lot of what he said was hitting home with me.
It's dead on, right?
Yeah.
But I see some people approaching this from a different angle. Either you have those who start with the gig economy because they haven't done anything yet, and they want to get a couple of contracts under their belt before they go to the established job. Or you have people who have built up a career. Now they realize they could get paid a lot more doing the gig economy, and they can get much better hours. So I see people approaching it from both ends. But do you see, as Smitty said, stability being the primary thing? Is it, if you're single, the gig economy works, but if you've got a family and responsibilities, you go for stability?
Well, I didn't have family or responsibilities, but I stayed at Monsters for 13 years because I liked
the 13 best years of your life.
No.
Okay.
But I loved the stability. When I was doing consulting and I have to go out and find clients, I hated doing sales.
Oh, God.
And hated having to do the taxes for the company and all of that. And so just going to Monster 5 days a week, sometimes 6, and be able to get the paycheck. It was a nice, steady job. And although I was at the same company for 13 years, I think the longest I had the same position was 5. And so things did change. So it was kind of like getting a new environment, a new project to work on. And so it wasn't 13 years of the same thing day in and day out. But
Lou, you see this at Microsoft. You've got a lot of people who either are coming from gig jobs or people who are leaving to do gig jobs because they now have experience under their belt, and they realize, you know what, I can either get paid way more or get paid the same working 1/3 the hours if I do contracts. How does this play into your calculus as you develop your software teams?
Yeah, so I think you don't see, so the secondary one, the one that you just said, was you don't find that a lot. In fact, a lot of people that leave Microsoft, like the other guys are saying, is they have so much experience that they're like, you know what, I can go out and do my own startup and make a lot more money. And they go out and work potentially with somebody else and start their own small company that does nothing similar to what Microsoft does, but they go do something that fits a niche market or something, and they make get some investors and they make a lot of money, and they know the reason why they get invested in is because they have the experience in building software and building good software and customer facing software, and they, people trust them to go build out this their own ideas. And I think that's partially where that comes from. But also playing on what Smitty and Patrick have said is this industry is all about experience. So if you're a college hire coming in and you do other things like your maker projects and you do other events and you're very versatile and you do other things outside the box that are not part of your normal stuff, you are going to be that much more viable and more valuable to a company than somebody who just comes in with good grades. And that's the same thing that if you're, let's say, a contract worker and you do things like all over the industry, from things that you're comfortable in to things you're not comfortable in, and you have potentially even good feedback from those projects, and you've learned how things are built and how things are not supposed to be built and how they're designed and how they're not supposed to be designed in different languages, and then you come to a corporation and you say, I have all this versatility, they're going to eat it all up because they want people who are versatile, who know how to learn and know how to grow and know how to evolve. And that's even more valuable than somebody that has one specific area of knowledge. So I think that's where that if you're in the gig economy and you're jumping around to different projects, you're doing for different people, you're gaining experience, deep knowledge into the goods and bads, and that's profoundly very, 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 very valuable in this industry nowadays, especially with technology changing so much.
Wait a minute. Okay, let's back up here. Forbes, The Economist, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, they've all published articles within the last 3 months that have talked about the rise of the gig economy and how this is changing the face of technology, especially in the Silicon Valley. But what I'm hearing from the three of you is
We've got a bunch of old codgers on this show.
Yeah.
I think the gig economy is a bunch of is more for younger folks who don't have. I mean, I've got a house, I've got a wife, I've got a daughter. I'm not going to go out and I don't have the opportunity to take the risk and go do contract work right now, right?
Okay.
I do it when I have to, but it's not the choice that I make. And so you might have the wrong group on the show to talk about the gig economy, I think.
Well, and Lou's actually going one step further. He's saying, look, if people are going to leave that stable job at Microsoft or wherever, where you've got the stability, you're not going to gig, you're going to do a startup. You're going to go whole hog.
Yeah.
So is it, Patrick, is the gig economy is it resume padding?
Yeah, and it helps because, like they were saying, if you have something you're doing on your own, some maker project, it makes you more attractive when you're going on that job interview, because it's not just, oh, I worked at this company and I did work for them, but you can't really tell what I did because it's part of this whole company thing. You can now say, hey, I did this project all by myself off on the side, check that out.
Or I contributed to this open source project or whatever, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thing. You can't talk about a lot of the work that you do for these big companies, for another company. I can't talk to you about what I do. I'm not even mentioning who I work for, right? That's intentional. And when if I decide to leave this job and go work for somebody else, I'm not going to be able to talk about the things that I did here. So that's one of the reasons why I play with things like rings of LEDs and Arduinos and
can you tell us
projects.
How long does your non-compete run? I'm assuming they gave you a non-compete.
Well, there's a difference between a non-compete and an NDA, right? A non-disclosure. So I don't think I'll ever be able to talk about the things that I do at my day job. For non-compete, I don't think non-competes are illegal in California. So even if they're in your contract, they're not enforceable.
Wait, Patrick?
I have a non-compete with Monster for 2 years, which is up now.
It's up? Okay.
But yeah, it means I couldn't go work for LinkedIn, I guess. So.
And actually, we've got a very good comment here from, I think it's from Chumley, who is saying that when he does his contracts, he has to carry his own insurance. He has to worry about all the little details. What I will say, from talking to people who have done whole hog into the gig economy, you have to have discipline. You should probably go with some sort of financial management software to make sure that you're setting aside enough for taxes. I can't tell you how many times I've heard of people who say, I made $500,000 this year, but then because they didn't withhold anything, they get killed on the taxes, and they're actually broke at the end of the year. So if you are going to go with gigging, with contract work, it's not just stability, it's also there's a certain amount of maturity that has to come with you doing that kind of work, which I guess fights against what we're saying, which is it's mostly the younger people who do the contract work.
Well, when I was younger, I did a lot of contract work, and I didn't know better, and I did a lot of things wrong, right? The other thing that you have to keep in mind is that when you are contracting as an individual, you are a business. You are a sole proprietor, and you need to deal with all of your taxes, and you get some exemptions as well. But you have to treat it like a business. You can't just treat it like a job. I know that's a mistake that I made when I was fresh out of college, and even while I was in college, I did a lot of contracting, going woohoo, money, and I didn't think about all of those ramifications. I've since then started a couple of jobs. I've started an LLC that's no longer around. I'm about to start another LLC or a nonprofit for the darknet, and it's a lot of work. All of this stuff is a lot of work that people don't think about.
Yeah,
and you need to.
That actually is one of those things that because I've worked in big organizations, I've had my own business, and I've also done gigging. I've done contract work, and it's amazing how many of the things I took for granted when I was working for large organizations that I now have to do. And I think that blows away a lot of people. You don't have an HR department. You are the HR department. You are your tax preparer. You are your contract negotiator. So yeah.
And sales department and marketing department and janitorial staff and yeah.
So some of these side services try to provide those type of functionality for you, where you can go like to Elance or whatever, and they provide you not only good feedback, but people can they provide the way to acquire invoice and get payment for it and get feedback and do iterations and support. They kind of handle all of that. But one thing they don't handle is, like you said, health insurance, savings plans, all these other things that these big corporations, all the benefits, the extra benefits that they have that are not really part of the process, but need to be done if you're going to live.
I'm not going to mention the name of the company because I don't want to give them any attention, because I think it's a horrible, horrible business model. But there is a company right now in the Silicon Valley that has been, they've been pitching themselves as the savior of gig economy folk. And the idea is, we will get you the contracts that you want, but we take care of your taxes, we take care of your insurance, we take care of all your HR needs, but you're still a contractor. And I'm scratching my head going, well, if the companies that hire me pay you and then you pay me, but you take out what you need for management and my taxes and my insurance, then that's not really gigging anymore. I'm not contracting them. I'm your employee.
Yeah. I mean, there are I'm blanking on the names of any of them right now, but there are companies out there that are contracting companies, right? They go out and they get the contract, and then they have a bunch of employees that they throw in those contracts. Why can't I think of any names? They're usually,
yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Uber. I'm sorry, what?
Sorry, it's not, you had a little bit of a...
I had a little Uber in my throat.
A little phlegm there.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That was bad. Yeah. No, but that's, that's the next generation. According to all the mainstream publications, that's where we're heading. And yeah, actually, this is why you are exactly the people I wanted on, because I want people who have actually had experience saying, that might be nice the first couple of years, but at some point you're going to want a steady paycheck, and you're going to want to stop being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Right?
There's actually an article somewhere about Uber, about people who literally grow out of being drivers because they find that, what, I can actually make more not working for a company that, that takes money out of this. I can go and do private work or whatnot. And so you'll see that. I think it was talking about how long people do it and how long, if there's drivers that have been there since the beginning or not. And it's more trending towards not, because of those people just figure it out. It's just easier for them to go in a different direction.
Right. Now, I do want to say, I'm not negative on the gig economy. I'm not negative on contracting. I think it is one of the best ways to get your name out there, to sort of pad the resume, get the experience. But as Chumley in the chat room said, at some point you grow to the point where you're tired of having your soul used over and over again. and you want a little something, either a steady job or your own company, your own startup. Yeah. So do we all end up there, or is this millennial generation never going to grow out of the gig economy?
You're making a bunch of sweeping generalizations, right? I mean, each individual, it's what you do, right? You're a TV show host. That's you're there to stimulate discussion, and I understand that. But I think every individual is going to have a different opinion, right? I personally am a steady job kind of guy. I'm sure there are the John Rosses out there. What are they? The techno nomads. The ancient people used to follow the caribou. He follows the job, if I'm quoting Daniel Suarez correctly. I'm sure there are people out there like that. I am not one of them. I am very much one of the cavemen that would have settled down and just like, yeah, that bush of berries over there is good enough for me. I don't think we need to have the entire industry sweep one way or the other. And and honestly, I think it's a bit of a tempest in a teapot for all of these news agencies to be reporting that they're swinging one way or the other. It might be oscillating one way or the other a little bit, but for the most part, it's going to be about the same. I mean, it's kind of like the old discussion about client server versus like thin client versus thick client, right? That's been going back and forth so often. In just the 20 years that I've been in technology. Okay, I guess I don't get to say just the 20 years I've been in technology because I've been around technology for a while now. But that's a discussion that's been going on for a long time, since long before I got into it, and it's going to keep swiping back and forth. And anybody who says, "Oh, it's headed this way," and tries to read some important tea leaf import into it, you're looking for something to write an article about.
Well, Lou, so Smitty has given us the balanced answer, which is the right answer. But as a host, I won't do that. So I will just ask you: will the gig economy destroy traditional jobs?
I don't think so. I personally don't think so. I mean, I know that I probably shouldn't veer one way or another, but I don't think it will, because you got to remember, people who have steady areas and have stability, it tends to grow in areas where people who don't have stability all the time. And so I think there's definitely going to be a balance. There might teeter one way or the other, but people who have that stability, like for instance, you give an example as researchers who are backed by universities and corporations, they tend to find more things and discover more things than ones who are off on their own. And so sometimes, that's why, because you have this workhorse behind you. And I think that's kind of the key is, I personally think that, as a person gains experience, sometimes they gain initiative, and then sometimes they gain a little bit of, hey, I think I want to go do something else someday, and I want to be able to do it on my own. And I'm just doing this to not only gain the experience, but financially gain the backing and gain the risk factor too, but also gain the guts for it. But but also because I want to go do something else, and I know I can do it on my own, and I know I can make a difference. But then there's also the other factor is, like Smitty, is I'm very comfortable here, and I'm making a difference where I'm at, and I'm providing for what I need, and I don't need to do anything else. So I think that's kind of the key. Is some people have different waves, different thoughts.
All right. We've got a good comment in the chat room from Eric Duckman, who is mentioning that his boss once told him that it cost the company 33% more than his salary just for the incidental. So that's, for HR, for your insurance, and for everything else, they take care of it for you.
The number that I remember is actually that it's 33% of what the company pays goes to that stuff. So it's actually 50% more of your salary is the number that I remember. Yeah. So you cost about 1.5 times the amount of money they give you.
Which is weird. That sounds weird, but yeah, that's about right. And again, that's something that anyone who's going to contract needs to consider, because you will not have a company to pay that. You will be paying that. So
on top of all your taxes and everything else.
Exactly. And
right.
Smitty, so the other thing that I want to come to you in a bit. Another thing that you mentioned, Smitty, is you're dead on in saying people see dollar signs when they do contract work, because they say, you're going to pay me how much per billable hour? But that's again, that's assuming that you're doing a full week. And very few people who work contract do a full week. In fact, one of the reasons why you do contract is so you don't do a full week.
That's right.
Well, when you're on contract, you're going to be sometimes doing 40, 60, 80-hour weeks. But then there are the times between contracts that you have to account for, and you need to save for, and you need to be ready for. It's kind of like doing property management, right? You get a house, it's a rental. You think, all right, I can charge, $2,000 a month to rent this house out, and my mortgage is only $1,500. That's $500 a month. But you have to keep into account all of the maintenance you're going to do on the house, all the times that you don't have somebody in the house, all of that crap, right? And so it's a much more complex equation that I just don't think a lot of people who haven't done it before understand.
Right.
Yeah, and when you're, some people just want to be their own boss. They want to make their own hours and do what they want to do. But between contracts, like you said, you still have to pay health insurance, and that is not cheap. I've just discovered recently.
Cobra, especially Cobra.
Yeah.
Cobra, great health insurance, but dang, was it $700 a month or something like that at minimum? It is interesting. We are talking with Patrick Delahanty, with Mark Smith, and of course with Lou Maresca. This is a Wildcard episode of Coding 101. We're just sort of sitting down, throwing back a beer. Well, no, not beer. Actually, there's two of us here who don't drink.
Sorry, teetotaler here.
Talking about the things that are important to programmers. We're going to get right back to it, but first I want to thank the second sponsor of this episode of Coding 101. Let me ask you something. Do you need a repository of knowledge? Of course you do. Everybody does. Well, if you do need one, why not try the one that we here at Twit use on pretty much a daily basis? And that's lynda.com. Now, lynda.com is a one-stop shop on the internet, both for skills you want to learn and for reference material, for things that you've already learned that maybe you need a little refresher on. Lynda.com is for problem solvers. It's for the curious, for the doers, for the people who want to make things happen. Maybe you want to learn how to develop an app. Maybe you want to take better photos or just sharpen your HTML skills. Well, lynda.com has everything you need to feed that curious mind. New Lynda courses right now include developing Microsoft SQL Server 2014 databases, distributing iOS applications to the App Store, and they've even got a course for beginners called Introducing PHP. Lynda.com has also released new updates in its incredibly popular Excel Tips series, which features productivity-boosting tricks, hidden features, essential functions, and techniques like using pivot tables for your data analysis. We have been using lynda.com here at Twit for pretty much everything. Our editors just switched from using Macs with Final Cut Pro to Windows PCs using Adobe Premiere. And they use Lynda to find out how you translate some of those functions. I've used lynda.com for know-how. Anytime I get stuck on a particular programming problem or I want to find out how to take better photography for one of those B-roll shots that I do, lynda.com is a great place just to jump in, find what you need, and jump back out. Speaking of using it as a reference, one of the most useful features of lynda.com is the fact that they've got transcripts for all of their lessons. So you don't have to sit through an entire module of videos to find the one thing you need. Find it in the transcript, jump to that particular video, that particular part of the video, get your answer, and go away. Lynda.com is good for 5 seconds or 5 hours. That's really one of the things I love about it. You get to watch and learn from top experts with really good production values. This is not a shaky YouTube video. Although I like YouTube, sometimes you don't want bad lighting. Sometimes you don't want bad audio. Sometimes you just want the information in a way that's easy to understand at a pace that you can control. And that's what Lynda does for you. Learning at your own pace, it means that your courses are structured so that you can pick up and well, drop it when you need to. It means you can watch on your iOS, your Android device, your laptop, your Mac, your PC, whatever it might be, in whatever form you might want it, lynda.com has the knowledge that you need. You even can create and save playlists of courses that you like so you can share it with your friends. If you want to make this a social experience, why not tell your friends, hey, you know what? I want to learn about photography this week. I think you guys would love it. Why not check out these videos? Here's what we want you to do. We want you to try lynda.com. We want you to see if it's as good for you as it is for us. Your lynda.com membership gives you unlimited access to training on hundreds of topics, all for one low flat rate. Whether you're looking to become an expert, you're passionate about a hobby, or you just want to learn something new, I want you to visit lynda.com/C101 and sign up for your free 10-day trial. That's right, a free 10-day trial. That's lynda.com, lynda.com/C101. And we thank lynda.com for their support of Coding 101. We're back to the action. We're speaking with Murderer's Row of programmers here. We've got Patrick Delahanty. Murderer's Row.
I haven't killed anyone.
Yet. It's a baseball thing. It's a baseball. Oh, never mind. I'm sorry.
Sports ball. Sorry, no, I'm.
Lou, you know what I was talking about, right?
I just like to see the reactions on it.
Lou's like, how did you know? No, I've got Mark Smith here. Of course, we've had him on the show before. He's DEF CON extraordinaire. He's actually one of my favorite people whenever I go to that show. Actually, Smitty, this last DEF CON, you were walking around with a big antenna. And I never really asked you about that. What was that all about?
Well, it was a directional 2-meter antenna used for T-hunts. Part of the DEF CON Darknet project was we were teaching people how to locate radio signals. And so I hit a transmitter, 2 of them actually, in the various different places in the con and encouraged people to go hunt them down. And so I brought a couple of directional antennas with me.
Actually, you know what I was thinking about for DEF CON this year? Do you think they'd let me fly a helium-filled quad blimp? in the main
Quad
hall.
blimp?
Yeah, it's neutrally buoyant, so you'd only need the props
Okay.
to either raise or lower. But I want to put an
Right.
RF beacon in one of those.
I would talk to the goons before you tried anything.
Otherwise, it will get shot down.
Otherwise, it might get shot down.
It might get shut down. Oh, actually, I met Smitty. What was it? I think it was DC 21 or DC 23. Well, in the hardware hacking village.
Yeah.
It was the first time I met you was when we had the badges that were shaped like little Egyptians.
I think that was 20.
Was it 20? Yeah, 20.
I think so.
And I remember you looked at my soldering and you said, no, that's bad. No,
You can do better than this, Padre.
Don't do that. That looks horrible. and been friends since. Of course, Patrick Delahanty here of Twit TV fame. He is the man who keeps all of our bits running. And you've had to work overtime the last couple of months because we switched over to the new website. There have been a couple of glitches, but nothing that you couldn't solve.
Yeah, we've done a lot of improvements on the back end as well, integrating the API.
That's right.
So-
And actually, how many Apple TV apps are there now? There's 4?
There's 4 Apple TV apps for Twit, and 2 of them use the API.
Yes, and again, I know we've said this ad nauseum, but you want to use the API if you're going to be using Twit TV content because it means that you get all the latest refreshes, all the latest updates. You can scrape if you really want, or you could hard code the RSS feed. It's just not elegant, right?
Yeah.
And why not
yeah.
tell the people if they want to start programming for the API? Again, where do they go?
Go to the Twit website. Under About, there's a link to developer tools and API, something like that. You can find it on the right side. And there's links in there to 3Scale to sign up for the API key, to Apiary where their API documentation is. And we even have links to the Coding 101 episodes that talk about the API.
Right. And actually, we just finished up a PowerShell module that showed you how to use PowerShell to use the Twit API. Lou, again, I'm still blown away. The whole idea of being able to get a JSON blob off the Twit API and not have to do anything to it, just PowerShell handles all of the parsing. That was impressive. What do you do on a daily basis, Lou?
What do I do on a So I fix bugs. I create new designs. We move on-prem software to cloud software. We do all types of different things. No, but we're constantly designing new things. We're constantly going back and looking at how we did things previously. We're pulling telemetry data and figuring out how customers are using things, where some of the pain points are, some of their perceived performance versus non-perceived back-end performance. We're changing those things. We're redesigning things. We're moving things from the old like database type, relational type databases up to NoSQL type things. I mean, there's constantly just moving parts all over the place, and I'm involved in it all day long. So it's constantly keeping my brain moving.
Yeah. Well, let's keep the brain moving. We have to close up really soon here because unfortunately we're running out of time. But as always, we want to have a takeaway. We want to have something for our audience to bring with them as they walk away from this episode of Coding 101. We've been talking a little bit about the gig economy. We've been talking about how you get into this game of programming, this game of contracting, and hopefully the game of stable employment. I want to start with you, Smitty. If you had someone come up to you at, say, DEF CON and say, hey, I've seen the work that you do. I love the fact that you get to get paid for something that you're passionate about. I want to do something like that. What should I study? The question I always get is this sort of general, what language should I study in order to get a career in this? What would you say to that person?
Oh, crikey. What language to study? It doesn't matter because any shop you get hired onto is going to use a different language. And even within a shop, there would possibly be multiple languages, right? Like Lou does C#. He works for Microsoft. I don't work for Microsoft, and we pretty much don't use any Microsoft tools. Sorry, Lou. They're great. We'll talk later after the show. But so everything that we do is like Java and Python and whatnot, right? And then the stuff that I'm doing for Darknet is all C. I'm writing in microcontrollers and whatnot. So if languages, I'm going to say, don't matter. What you need to think about, what you need to learn is how to interpret the problem. How do you take this is what needs to happen, not how do I write the piece, but this is what I need, a tool to do this, whatever this is. How do I take that and break it down into the pieces that you need to be able to accomplish that. Learning what your tools are that are available to you. Figure out what languages you could possibly do it in. Figure out what the advantages and disadvantages of those languages are, and choose the right tool for the job. Right? You wouldn't use a hammer to to screw in a screw, right? To drive a screw in. Bad example, but you get the idea, right? You want to choose the right tool for the job. I'm not going to be writing Python for my microcontroller. I'm not going to write C# for my microcontroller. I'm going to be using either assembly or C. It's more about learning what the tools are that are available to you and figuring out when to use what, I think, rather than one particular tool. I don't think learning any one particular tool is going to be the big thing. Learn how to learn, really. Learn how to learn.
Patrick, actually, I think that's our show title, Learn How to Learn. Patrick, same type of question to you. Someone comes up to you at, let's say, the Monster reunion in 20 years and says, oh, you're Patrick Delahanty. I remember you. I want to do what you did, and I want to get my career. I want to start programming, but I want to avoid all the soul-crushing stuff. What advice would you give them?
Do what you enjoy. If there's a particular program language that you get some pleasure out of coding in, then that's probably the one for you. And hopefully it's not something like Fortran, and something that's more widely used so that it's easier to find a job in that, or a gig, as it were. Yeah. But
I've got a friend who's making a very good living writing COBOL.
Yeah, there's plenty of people out there still doing COBOL.
Fortran.
Not a very high demand for it, though. But find the language you enjoy and go to it, and then learn some more, because you can never have too many languages, and it's always good to have a few tools in your toolbox.
Lou, I want to give you a slightly modified version of that. Okay. You have been working at Microsoft. You had great success at Microsoft, and you are working within a corporate environment. You deal with a lot of other people. You do as much project management. Actually, I'd say more project management than you do coding. How do you keep from losing your mind? How do you keep from going crazy and taking out your entire office?
Just going postal.
That's actually a really good question. So one thing I want to comment on Smitty's comment is, at Microsoft, especially on my team, is we're client group too as well, and so my team alone, out of the 22 people that work under me, is that we build iOS apps and Android apps and Windows Phone and Windows Store and we code in every type of IntelliJ applications to build out Java apps and Eclipse, and now we're looking in IoT and all these different things, right? So I think we're very versatile as a team, and I think that's the key to keeping me sane. Is actually it's kind of crazy. It's the backwards is that there's so much going on, but it keeps me sane because I just love technology and learning new things so much. Adding to my responsibility and all of these learning these different technologies and really driving these projects to success keeps me kind of driven. And so that alone is enough to kind of keep me sane, even though, sometimes, management might drive me nuts, or maybe, bugs that get created or customers that complain about something might drive you a little crazy sometimes. It's the fact that there's always a future and there's always some advancement that you're going to be kind of owning and driving that kind of keeps me going. And I think that's super important.
I agree. And if I can give you a little something else to drive on, if you can make Microsoft's integration with Ubuntu not suck, I would appreciate it greatly. I am the one Ubuntu user in a team full of Windows and Mac users. And every time they say, oh, that document's up on SharePoint, I just clench. Because LibreOffice is fine as long as you're doing LibreOffice to LibreOffice. Anytime, and LibreOffice can usually open a Microsoft Office file. But Lord help you if you need to make any changes and save that file and re-upload it to SharePoint. If you can fix that problem for me, I will buy you as many beers as you can consume in a year.
Well, Lou, can you bring that to Satya the next time you guys have lunch?
Yeah, I think Satya's on top of it, man. He's constantly forcing SharePoint updates and software updates, and he's all about cross-platform. So I think
Ubuntu, man,
you can
bring
bring it. Microsoft Connect's the first place to go. I don't have no influence on that, unfortunately, but Microsoft Connect's the first place to go, which is our suggestion engine. You can go to and just suggest stuff, and people can vote it up and down. You never know; there might already be something out there.
And actually,
sure
no,
it is.
I found that because of the MVPs we had on the show, Microsoft Connect. It is a great place to suggest or vote for projects, and
Right.
they take it seriously. If there's enough interest in a particular project, they will do it. I actually don't know of any other company that does something like that. So, props to you, Lou. I know that was your idea, so.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for being part of this episode of Coding 101. You know what? I wish we could do this each week because I just have so much fun. I want a show where it's just a bunch of chill geeks talking about stuff, and I think that's what we've done today. So congratulations, thank you very
Isn't
much.
that Padres Corner?
Yes, but that's still on hiatus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
we'll bring it back at some point.
Okay.
I'll get more time. If we could please tell the audience where they can find you. Smitty, let's start with you. I don't know. I never know what I can talk about with you because I don't want to get you in trouble. But
No
do you have
problem.
any projects you want to show off really quick? Maybe tease an appearance on Know-How in the future? And where can people find you in general on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, my most active social spot is on Twitter. I am at Smitty Halibut, as you can see in my lower third down here. I will tease a little bit about what I've got coming up for Darknet this year. This is a Pro Micro Arduino with an AT-ECC 508A and an AT24C256. I will let you look up those chips and figure out what they are. But I am playing around with those.
And for anybody who doesn't understand what he says when he says Darknet, go read Daniel Suarez's Freedom and Demon and Freedom TM. Those are the 1 and 2.
Great books.
And no, really, it's just like it sounds in the book. So go figure. And actually, your project is with
with a little bit less death and dismemberment.
slightly
Only a
less
little
death, slightly less death and dismemberment, and slightly fewer HUD glasses. But you actually did get the blessing of Daniel Suarez for this. He knows about this, right?
Not sure how much I can talk about this, but off the record, just between you, me, and the NSA, yes, Daniel has... Actually, no, he's tweeted it, so I think it's safe to say. Daniel knows that what we're doing, and he is impressed with it, so...
Fantastic.
I consider that to be an honor to have the author of the books that inspired your project tell you how cool he thought the project was.
There you have it, folks. If you want to be able to overthrow the current world governments and get rid of the cabal that has been running information, just go ahead and check out Smitty at Smitty Halibut at Twitter?
Smitty Halibut on Twitter, or if you want to learn more about the DEF CON Darknet project, go to https://dcdark.net. And it's also on Twitter as @DCDarknet.
Great to have you, Smitty. Always great to have
Thanks.
you.
Thanks.
Of course,
Great to be here.
Patrick Delahanty, my man on the right here. Your wife is far more interesting than you are. She's got the book Awkward, which is
Yes.
fantastic. People should go out and buy it right now.
Yes, and it made the top 10 list for the school library journal
There you go.
for 2015.
And
So,
I have a copy on my. I used to have a copy on my desk until someone stole it. Brian stole my copy. It was supposed to be autographed. But you do some interesting stuff too. I mean, you're not just your wife's husband, right?
yeah. Well, mostly. But I also do AnimeCons TV. It's a podcast talking about conventions. And I just posted the first half of an episode that I shot at Otakuthon in Montreal, where I talk about starting your own convention and why you should never start a convention. And
starting your own convention and how not to do that.
Literally the first 10 minutes of that panel was, here's why you don't want to start a convention. And so you can find links to that and everything I do at adequate.com.
I want to do a programming show like that. It'll be Coding 102, and the first line is don't become a programmer.
don't.
Just don't.
Just
Don't do it.
don't. Just don't.
No. We're going to talk about it, but don't do it. And of course, Lou Maresca, my super special King Kamehameha co-host. I do want to say, you have a very exciting thing happening in your life in the next few weeks. If you can you tell the audience about it?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a new son coming along.
Right?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
He'll be number 3.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Yep. Excited.
That's awesome. No
He's-
wonder you'll want a steady job.
He's got a new process on the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But Lou, of course, can you tell the folks where they can find you and your work at Microsoft?
Absolutely. So you can always find me, my work at Microsoft at crm.dynamics.com. And just a quick plug, Dynamics 26 CRM, Dynamics CRM 2016 just released. 130 markets, 44 languages. So very complex, but tons of new features. Just kind of we just delivered it recently. It's been a lot of my life's blood the last several months. So check that out. And of course, you'll find me at Twitter at LouMM.
Gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to share this episode with you. Thank you so very much for being part of Coding 101.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Folks, don't forget that we do this show every Monday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time. If you drop by at live.twit.tv, you can watch us live. And as long as you're watching live, jump into the chat room at irc.twit.tv. As you can see, I interact. I've got a little screen with all your texts coming at me. It's a good way to be part of the show, to ask the questions that you want to ask and be interactive with the hosts of Coding 101. Also, don't forget that we've got a show page at twit.tv/code. If you go there, you'll be able to find all of our episodes, as well as subscribe so you can get every episode automatically downloaded to your device of choice. You can find me at twitter.com/PadreSJ. That's a great place to ask for future languages, future modules, as well as guests that you want to see in these wildcard episodes. Finally, I want to thank everyone who makes this show possible. Of course, to Lisa and Leo for letting us do Coding 101. Special shout out to my co-host for the last, I don't know how many episodes, but many episodes, Lou Maresca. He's actually been with us since the very beginning of the show, and it has always been a pleasure to work with you. And of course, to our TD, who today is Anthony. Anthony, I don't know if you have a camera on yourself, but can you say hello to the folks at home?
Hey, everyone.
That's Anthony. He pushes all the buttons and he makes sure that everything gets edited properly.
Yep.
Until next time, I'm Father Robert Ballester. Just saying to you, actually, I don't want to say it to you. I think Lou wants to say it to you. Lou, how do we end every episode?
End of line.